I'm still talking to Talk presenter, my old colleague and friend Alex Phillips. Alex, this is like a snapshot of modern Britain. Last weekend, the Mail carried a really interesting double-page spread about Coventry. They called it City of Migration. And it could actually be many a place in Britain, as you well know. Basically, in one recent year, this is a city of 350,000 people, medium-sized city. In one recent year, 22,000 migrants arrived among those people. 22,000. They're coming at that kind of rate, 22,000 a year. And they interviewed lots of locals. You know, the hospitals, the infrastructure is at breaking point. The hospitals, in particular, are just chaos. Absolute chaos, and the other infrastructure is also creaking at the seams. And the locals, traditional Coventry residents, just saying, we no longer recognise the city we grew up in. Now, I think, as I say, that is a snapshot of many cities and towns all over this country. And I don't think it's, you know, by even discussing this, by the Mail, this old racist newspaper, will be called racist for discussing it. I don't think it is racist to think about Coventry, to think about cities like Coventry, and to worry that somehow British culture, what this country is all about, is being consumed and kind of effectively destroyed.
Yeah. Why shouldn't we worry about that? Every other place on earth gets to worry about that if they're not part of the global minority, as we're now eerily called by woke people. Because, you know, we can look at other nations like South Africa with terrible racial cohesion. You can look at countries like Lebanon, for instance, which was a multicultural experiment gone very badly wrong. And you can see what happens when you have a load of people all living together, not in harmony, but in balkanized groups, in ghettoization. It's a disaster. So even if you just put it in that regard and say, well, everybody suffers as a result of the failed experiment of multiculturalism, that's a valid argument. But turning around and saying, well, should we not have the right to protect our own? I mean, of course we do. We would make that case for Aborigines or Native Americans. Why on earth can't we make the case for us, especially if we're now the global minority, as they seem to like saying? And, you know, everybody listening, everybody watching, unless you happen to live in the Outer Hebrides or something, will have their own story to tell, their own anecdote of how bad things have become. So this morning, for instance, I wanted to book an appointment at my GP surgery. I knew I was not going to get one.
Good luck with that.
And not just that, so I get through finally and be told I'm 17th in the queue, at which point I thought, well, what is the point, and hung up because I knew I'd be having to wait on that phone for about 2 hours. But I only managed to get through after listening to this long-winded warning that in my borough of London, everyone's got measles, that measles is back.
Is it really?
And I know why that's happened, because we vaccinate against measles in this country. We vaccinate against things like TB. But all of these viruses and diseases of the past that we have treated and almost erased from society are back with a vengeance. Brilliant.
Oh dear, it's very worrying. And on a national scale, you would have seen recently when they released the new sort of population figures, that Britain's population, the last figures for the year up until June 2023, the population of this country grew by 1%. That adds up to 662,400 people, bringing the total population to 68.2 million. Everybody knows there are probably millions of people in this country we don't even know about. I've heard estimates of maybe as many as 10 million. Now, to age myself, I don't really need to. Everybody knows I'm not exactly that young. But when I was a kid, I remember gasping in primary school when the teacher said there are 55 million people living in this country. Now we've got officially nearly 70 million, probably unofficially 80 million. This is a small island. These are small islands. This cannot go on.
Yeah, it's not even about population density and resources, although it is very much also about that and infrastructure and overcrowding and it impoverishing us because there's just not enough cake to go around. It is more importantly about our heritage and our culture. And I'm not ashamed to say that. And why should I be ashamed? Why should I not say, do you know, my grandparents built this nation. My grandparents fought in 2 world wars. My grandma worked stitching wings onto aeroplanes of the Gloucester Meteor. She did that to defend this country and defend the concept of the nation state. My grandfather was in Palestine during the Second World War. They fought to protect this country, but their ancestors before them, blood, sweat and tears, built this country from the bottom up with bricks, with a society, with a democracy, with well-functioning public services, with a culture we can be proud of. They did that. Not these people coming in yesterday who don't even learn the language. And it gets on it doesn't just get on my nerves. It insults me. It offends me. Now, I've lived all over the world. And when I go and live in countries like Ghana or India or Kenya or Cameroon, I actually love being there for what they are because they're not Britain. And I love integrating and I love learning their culture, and by no means are the white people or the visitor nations in those countries in any way, shape or form overwhelming the local population, and by and large they're probably earning a lot more money and paying more into the system as well. So there's nothing wrong with a country maintaining its identity, but there's something extremely wrong in essentially eradicating centuries and centuries worth of history, progress, stuff we should be proud of in the blink of an eye in an experiment that will never be able to be reversed.
Yeah, you're so right. I'm going to put out a call to the audience. I mean, give me a ring. What do you think? I grew up in the sort of 70s, 80s, and this country's a different place now. It's a very, very different place, and I wonder what you think about that. Give me a ring. 0344. Hang on, I got that wrong, didn't I? 0344 499 1000. Why can't I remember that number? I say it about 46 times a day. You still there, Alex?
Yeah, I am. I do the same. Sometimes I just start putting in extra nines, especially 0344 49999. I mean, it just goes out of control.
So that sounds
and
like
if you go to bed, it's all you can think of.
Yeah. Listen, Alex, it's been excellent to have you on board as always. It's like the old days. It was about a year ago we started Crosstalk on TalkTV, and a lot of water under the bridge since then. But it's fantastic to work with you again, and I have a feeling I might be working with you a lot more in the future. Thank you so much. That was the brilliant Alex Phillips. What do you think about some of the... She articulates what I think a lot of us are worried about in this country. We're losing our culture, we're losing our national identity, and for some reason our politicians, our Westminster bubble boys and girls, just let more and more and more foreigners in. I'm not against it in principle, but it seems to be completely unchecked. Immigration can be a great thing, but now we've got this mass immigration going on. They're letting in 1.5 million people legally. Many of them leave, but, you know, hundreds of thousands of people come here legally every year, not to mention the illegal migrants. So your thoughts, please.